I thought this night would finally prove I mattered. But within an hour, I knew my family had erased me for good. The smell of roasted thyme and fresh sourdough lingered in the dining room. 40 chairs. White tablecloths. All waiting. All untouched. I had polished every glass, pressed every napkin, and placed a handwritten menu on each plate. Not group texts. Not random calls. I had delivered invitations by hand. The grand opening of my first restaurant. My name on the sign above the door. Clara Bennett's table. My brother once joked, "Who's going to eat at a place run by a 40-year-old single chef?" He said it last Thanksgiving while Mom laughed and Dad poured himself another drink. I'm 39. Old enough to know better, young enough to still try. That line has lived in my head all year. Tonight, it echoed louder than the empty room. My phone buzzed. Photos from across town. Daniel's backyard. Plastic tables, greasy ribs, lukewarm beer. All of them there. My parents, Richard and Marianne, even Aunt Linda who never leaves the house. Smiling. Posing. Holding a cake with bright blue icing. To new heights. I stared at it, then at the empty hall I had built on borrowed money. The lemon tart I baked for Dad sat untouched on the counter. 5 hours. I dumped it in the trash. I adjusted the sleeves of my new navy dress, chosen because Mom always said the color matched my eyes. I thought she'd notice. She didn't even show up. Now it felt like a costume for an audience that left before the curtain rose. A memory cut through. I was 12 when I baked my first pie for Dad. I carried it to the table proud, waiting for him to say, "I'm proud of you, Clara." He took a bite, shrugged and reached for the salt. That shrug followed me here. Heavier than the empty chairs. Outside, a couple paused at the window, reading the menu taped to the glass. My stomach dropped. What if a neighbor snapped a photo of the vacant dining room and posted it online? One viral image and every investor would know I was a failure. On the host stand sat the chipped white plate. The last one from a set I bought years ago. Dad always claimed it at Sunday dinners. Now it was mine, broken but still useful. I kept it as a reminder. Tonight it felt like a warning. Why was this plate the only one that survived? Then my phone vibrated again. A text from Dad. "We need to discuss the restaurant." That was it. Not sorry. Not proud. Not congratulations. Just business. My stomach turned. I typed back a single line. From this day forward, no family reservations. No discounts. No exceptions. I set the phone beside the chipped plate. The hum of the fridge filled the silence. A bread knife lay across the counter, blade catching the light. The detail stuck in my mind for no reason I could name. As I locked the door, one thought settled like stone. Dad had always chosen the battlefield. But this time I would. Countdown started. 48 hours until the first strike. And when it came, I would answer. The knock came close to midnight. 3 dull thuds against the back door. The dining room was silent, except for the hum of the fridge and the ticking wall clock. Cold air slipped through the frame, brushing my ankles. I opened the door. Daniel stood there. My golden boy brother. His blazer too sharp for a backyard party. The smell of cologne mixed with smoke from his grill. In his hand, a bakery box with smeared blue icing. "Clara," he said. "Figured you'd want a slice." I didn't move. His eyes slid past me, scanning the empty dining room. 40 chairs untouched. Napkins folded. Glasses aligned. Every empty seat a witness. "We didn't think the opening was that big of a deal," Daniel said. "Dad called it a soft launch." I crossed my arms. I sent cards by hand. Called Mom 3 times. I baked Dad's lemon tart. It sat for hours before I threw it away. He winced. "People got busy." "No," I said. "People got lazy." His smile cracked. He lowered the box. Under the icing I read the faint letters. "To new heights." The same cake from his party. My replacement. "Dad wants to invest now," Daniel rushed. "He sees potential. He asked me to talk to you." Not guilt. Not support. Just business. I stepped closer. "Tell Richard the restaurant already has an investor. My loyalty is exclusive." Daniel frowned. "What does that even mean?" I looked at the alley, where drops of rain darkened the concrete. "It means you're late. And I don't serve leftovers." Silence stretched. Then he said, Don't make this bigger than it is. But it was bigger. A memory hit 5 years earlier when I tried catering. Richard helped with a loan. I worked double shifts to pay him back, only to learn the fine print gave him control of my suppliers. Every invoice passed his desk. Every delivery delayed unless I agreed to his terms. That business died the moment I signed his papers. His help was a leash. And tonight I smelled the leash again. I grabbed the trash bag by the counter. Plastic cut into my palms, heavier than it should have been. My fingers shook. The sour lemon tart leaked through, mixing with rain. I walked past Daniel and slammed it into the dumpster. The echo filled the alley. Across the way, the bartender leaned on his doorway, arms crossed, watching. Even strangers were witnesses now. Tomorrow the whole street would whisper. Clara Bennett opened her dream. Nobody came. Daniel's voice followed. This is family, Clara. Don't burn bridges. I turned. You already lit the match. He muttered and walked off, shoes splashing through the rain. Inside, I pressed my hand to the chipped plate on the counter. My thumb traced the crack. Underneath it lay a stack of bills, edges curled. One stamped final notice in red. My stomach clenched. This wasn't just pride. This was debt. The bread knife gleamed on the counter. I slid it into the drawer. Not tonight. The phone buzzed. A voicemail from the bank. I didn't play it. I knew the voice. Polite, clipped, reminding me of payment schedules. Another clock ticking. Keys swayed on the hook by the door. I thought, what if I came back one night and the locks were changed? What if my name vanished from my own door? Why had Richard sent Daniel instead of coming himself? Was this investor even real? What exactly did Daniel whisper before walking away? Questions piled up like those bills under the plate. I locked the door, turned the deadbolt. The dining room smelled of detergent and spoiled lemon. My reflection stared back from the dark window. Countdown reset. 36 hours. And I knew Richard Bennett. He didn't knock. He broke doors. The call came early, just after dawn. The restaurant was still dark, only the hum of the fridge breaking the silence. My phone lit up. The bank. Miss Bennett, the voice said, too polite, too steady. We've noticed delays in your recent payments. Final reminders have been issued. Please call us back today. I sat at the counter, chipped plate in front of me. The red final notice envelope lay underneath. My stomach tightened. Richard's shadow was in that call, even if his name wasn't. I pulled open a drawer. Inside, an old folder. My first contract with Richard's, help. The paper was yellowed, the ink smudged, but the words still cut. Supplier rights, payment schedules, penalties. I had signed at 24, desperate, tired, too naive to read the fine print. The smell of grease and bleach came back to me. Long nights in a downtown kitchen, hauling crates heavier than me. The head chef barked orders while I scrubbed pans until my hands cracked. Richard had visited once. He laughed. You're too soft for this. Business will eat you alive. He was right then. Or maybe I believed he was. The phone buzzed again. This time a text from a supplier. We're holding the next delivery until your balance clears. Orders must go through your guarantor. My hands shook. Richard again. He was already pulling strings. I poured myself coffee, but the taste was bitter, metallic. My eyes burned. I thought of Mary Ann. Mom had always been quieter than Richard, but her words cut sharper. Last year, when I told her about the restaurant, she looked at me over her glasses. You're too gentle, Clara. You give away meals like they're candy. That's not business. She never said congratulations. Outside, traffic picked up. Tires splashing through puddles. A dog barked, sharp and restless. Life moved on while I sat in the empty dining room, staring at unpaid bills and cold coffee. The door creaked. Just the wood shifting in the morning damp. But my chest tightened. For a second I thought Richard had already come. I reached for the bread knife in the drawer. My hand froze on the handle. Why was I still afraid of him? Why did I still think he could walk in and take what was mine? I let go. Closed the drawer. The chipped plate stared back. Broken but still useful. Just like me. Countdown ticked. 24 hours. The phone fell silent, but silence meant nothing. Richard Bennett didn't need to speak. His network already did the talking. I met Richard the next afternoon. Not at the restaurant. He chose the bank. Always his territory. Neutral ground that wasn't neutral at all. He was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window with his suit pressed sharp, coffee untouched. His watch glinted. Expensive, heavy. He tapped the table once when I walked in. A summons, not a greeting. "Clara," he said. His voice carried. People turned their heads. He wanted them to hear. I sat across. My hands were steady, though inside my chest hammered. The chipped plate flashed in my memory. Broken but still here. "You've made a mistake," Richard said. "This restaurant on your own? You're sinking already." Daniel told me what he saw. "He saw me working," I replied. "He saw you failing," Richard snapped. "Empty chairs. Bills stacking. Suppliers holding orders. Do you think that happened by chance?" His words hit, but I kept my face still. Behind him, a teller counted bills. The faint clink of coins echoed. Money was always his language. "You want me gone," I said. "Just say it." Richard leaned forward. "You're still my daughter. That name above your door, Bennett. It's mine as much as yours. I can protect it. Or I can bury it." The word slid across the table like a knife. A memory cut through. I was 16. Daniel unwrapped a new bike, shining red. Mom clapped, Dad smiled wide. My turn came. They handed me a used cookbook. "It's practical," Richard said. Daniel rode laps around the yard while I traced grease stains on faded pages. That was my gift. That was my place. Back in the bank, I forced my voice steady. "I don't need your protection." Richard smiled thin. He adjusted his cufflinks slowly, eyes never leaving mine. "You don't even know who I've already invited to this table." The words were casual, but the threat was clear. Something inside me twisted. Why do I still want him to say it? Just once. "I'm proud of you." The thought burned, then froze. Outwardly, I stayed stone. "I can bury you," Richard repeated. I pulled an envelope from my bag. A bill. Overdue. I set it between us. Then, with the scissors I carried for menus and receipts, I cut it clean in half. The sound was sharp, final. Heads turned. "I'm not signing another deal with you," I said. Richard's jaw tightened. For the first time, his hand trembled on the table. "You think one gesture changes the numbers?" he asked. "No," I said. "But it changes me." We sat in silence. The bank's clock ticked. People went back to their business. But I knew he wasn't done. Richard Bennett never walked away after one strike. I gathered the torn pieces of paper, slid them back into my bag. My hand still shook, but not from fear. From release. Countdown 12 hours. He had made his move, but I was already preparing mine. The rain stopped by dusk, but the street was slick, shining under the lamps. I unlocked the door of my restaurant. The key stuck for a second, metal grinding in the lock. A bad omen. Inside, the air was thick with detergent and yesterday's lemon tart. I set my bag on the counter. The chipped plate waited on the host stand. I picked it up, traced the crack, then placed it on the counter in plain sight. A marker. A knock at the glass. The bartender from next door. His jacket damp, his eyes tired. I let him in. "Clara," he said. "People saw Daniel the other night. They saw him corner you at the back door. They're talking. But not all of them against you." I narrowed my eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" He leaned on the counter. "Because I remember last winter. You sent soup to the hospital when the storm cut power. My sister's a nurse. She said it kept her going. People don't forget that." The word struck. I had almost forgotten. Acts of kindness, dismissed by my family as weakness, were remembered by strangers. Later I closed up. Another knock. Mrs. Alvarez from across the street. Shawl tight around her shoulders. She carried a basket of herbs. "For your dishes," she said softly. "I remember you cooking for the block when the lights went out. Don't let them take this from you." Her hand shook as she pressed the basket into mine. Rosemary, thyme, mint. The smell filled the room, cutting through the detergent. My throat tightened. My family laughed when I gave food away. Said I was soft. Yet tonight softness stood at my door, stronger than Richard's threats. The phone buzzed. A message from Marianne. "Stop embarrassing us. Sell to your father." 6 words. No greeting. No love. Just dismissal. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then I placed the chipped plate in front of the bartender, who was still sipping coffee. "This plate was always Dad's," I said. "Now it's mine. If they want it back, they'll have to fight." He raised his cup. "Then let them fight." Silence settled after they left. But it wasn't the empty silence of part 1. It was charged. The kind before lightning. Countdown 6 hours. This wouldn't be negotiation. It would be war. The boardroom smelled of paint and burned coffee. Not my restaurant. Richard had chosen the city business center. Long table, polished wood, chairs too stiff, lights too bright. A stage for control. Daniel sat at the far end, sleeves rolled up, smile stretched too wide. A folder lay open in front of him, papers stacked neat. He tapped a pen against the table, fast like a drummer hiding nerves. Richard stood by the window, arms behind his back. His reflection cut sharp against the glass. He turned when I entered. "Clara," he said evenly, "today we end this. Your brother has the plan. You should listen." Daniel spread the papers. Charts. Contracts. "Clara, you can't run this alone. The bank doesn't trust you. Suppliers hesitate. With me in charge. With you sabotaging," I cut in. His pen froze mid-tap. I pulled my folder from my bag. Spread copies across the table. Invoices, transfers, emails. Daniel's name in black and white. Orders rerouted. Payments delayed. Deliveries blocked unless Richard approved. Pattern no one could ignore. Murmurs circled the room. A woman at the table leaned closer, scanning the pages. Another whispered something under his breath. Daniel's face paled. "That's taken out of context." Context. I slid an invoice forward. "This was my delivery. You held it back. Staff waiting, customers walking out, and you laughing in the backyard." Silence. Richard didn't move. His eyes stayed on me, but his jaw tightened. A memory broke through. High school gym, my name called. I had won the county baking contest. First place. Applause echoed. I searched the crowd for Richard. He stood, checked his watch, walked out. Daniel tugged at his sleeve, bored. That was my reward. An empty seat. Now I faced them both. "You always said I was second, Daniel. Tonight everyone sees who you are." One of the members cleared his throat. "Miss Bennett, this evidence is serious. Your brother compromised the accounts. Management rights can't continue under his name." Daniel's hand shook. He looked at Richard, desperate. No rescue came. Richard finally turned, voice low. "You disappointed me." For a second I thought he meant me. Then Daniel realized. The words were for him. Daniel's pen dropped. His head sank. Richard reached into his pocket, pulled out a ring of keys, dropped them on the table. The sound clattered, sharp. "Remember, Clara," he said. "Bennett is my name too. One move and I change your locks." The metal gleamed under the fluorescent light. My stomach twisted, but my face stayed still. "Then move fast," I said. "Because when this hour ends, those locks won't be yours to touch." The room shifted. Daniel slumped back. Richard's jaw tightened more. For once the balance tilted toward me. Countdown 1 hour. His mask was breaking. Their threats were louder. And I knew the final strike would be mine. The hall was full. Not family, not Richard's allies, real people. Customers. Neighbors. The bartender stood near the back, arms crossed. Mrs. Alvarez held her shawl, basket of herbs at her feet. Faces I had fed when no one else cared. Richard entered with Daniel at his side. Daniel looked smaller now, shoulders bent, papers clutched like shields. Richard moved steady, confident, cufflinks gleaming. He scanned the room as if it already belonged to him. He raised his voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, my daughter Clara has worked hard. But it's time for stability. I will oversee this restaurant. My son Daniel will manage operations." A murmur swept through. I stepped forward, holding the folder. "No," I said. My voice didn't shake. I laid the papers on the front table. Evidence of sabotage. Proof of payments rerouted, deliveries blocked. Contracts signed behind my back. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Daniel tried to speak, but the bartender cut in. "We all saw what you did, Daniel. We know." His voice carried stronger than mine. Richard's jaw clenched. Clara, this is family business. Not for outsiders. I lifted the chip plate from my bag. The crack caught the light. I set it on the table in front of me. This was always yours, Richard. You claimed it every Sunday. Tonight it's mine. And I don't need your name to keep it. Silence. Then someone whispered from the back. This is her night. The weight shifted. I felt it. Daniel sank lower, his papers sliding from his hands. Richard's cufflinks caught the light, but his power cracked with them. I didn't shout. I didn't gloat. I just stood calm, the chip plate in front of me. For the first time, not a symbol of what he owned. A symbol of what I had taken back. Countdown ended. 0 hours. The strike was mine. I walked out of that hall knowing one truth. Broken things can still stand. And I was done being second. If this story held you, leave a comment below. Your feedback helps the channel grow, and I read every word. New stories come every day. Subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one.